All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to the CX Chronicles podcast. Super excited. Lee Roquet, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, so thank you for having me. Can't wait to talk and share and get going.
Well, look, first of all, guys, so Lee and I have caught up a couple of times over the last few weeks getting ready for the show. And it's always nice to have another true CXer that has been doing the same types of things, thinking about customer experience, thinking about all the intricacies of what goes into building an awesome customer experience, and doing it at a super cool company like Yellowfin. So I'm pumped for you to join the CX Nation today, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's get the show started, Lee. Let's get things going like we always do. Why don't you take a couple minutes, give the CX Nation your background, give them a bit of a sense for how you found your way into working in customer experience, and let them know how you got into the position you are in today as the Chief Customer Officer at Yellowfin.
Okay. Yeah, great. Great to share kind of my past. I think a lot of people who find themselves in the kind of CX or customer success space probably have a similar story. Started in software, 20 years ago, software company, working in tech support, was able to just be able to scale up and manage some teams in the technical support space. Found that I had a good passion for just trying to help teams and also the customers just be more successful. And so, rose to management. And what I learned early, and I luckily had a great a COO I worked for, Gary Coates, and he told me early on in my career is that, if you really want to drive change, is make sure that you have your fingers in all the processes and systems that are in the organization, right?
It's true, man.
20 years ago, everything was siloed. And I think, a lot of teams still kind of have that struggle when they're trying to horizontally push.
You're right.
Why the customer value is so important, especially as, you have companies who are doing, SaaS-based models, monthly subscriptions. You just have to embrace the value of the customer. So as I started my career, I definitely made sure that I could oversee the systems that the organization built on. So I kind of took the operations and customer success. I guess that has always been my passion. And so I've always managed or overseen the, building of CRMs or the management of CRMs or improving the process for the teams, because my goal and things that I always look at is the people, process, and product. Yep. And so if I can make the process easier for the teams, they can spend more time with the customer.
Yeah. Yep.
And so going through the, typical, I've been at a couple software companies and vice president of client services and really focusing on the customer, the teams around the customer. So over the last few years, I've had a couple side journeys, did a startup with some friends to do, I've always been in software and ended up doing truck bed storage systems. So that was super fun.
Nice. That's different. Yeah. That's a lot different than software, Lee.
It was so different and just fun to do a kind of a B2C and just do something completely new and different. So I learned a ton. And then
Lee, I have to ask you, what drew you guys into that whole space? What made you want to go down that rabbit hole?
Well, okay. So yeah, totally transparent. So I was at a hardware software company and was brought in to help grow the company to sell. And then we had so much fun, a team of 7 of us, and we got the company turned around and built this great change within the organization. And the owner didn't want to sell. So we kind of all got let go to go find something new to do. And this opportunity landed in my lap to just completely do something different. And I'm really close friends with the original kind of idea person behind that company. And it was just, I was employee number 1, head of marketing, head of operations, and got to build from the ground up a really cool company. And then actually it was kind of interesting because the person that Lance, who I worked for at this company, he was really close friends. They went to primary school together with Glenn Robbie, the CEO of Yellowfin.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just, it's funny how people's relationships, and as you evolve, you just kind of stumble on these opportunities. And I got to meet Glenn and was just super impressed with kind of what his passion was for Yellowfin, being in the data space and really providing companies with the tools to visualize their data to help drive their business success. And so I took the opportunity to jump over to Yellowfin and got to start with, I was employee 33, and really got to build on the 20 years experience I have with teaming and building teams and process. And it's been super rewarding, because I've got to kind of take everything I've learned and also just some of the things that are kind of happening in the space around customer success the last five years or so, because it's changing so rapidly.
So
I mean,
quickly.
even in this last 12 months, I'm scratching my head on some of the programs that I've started, 6 years ago or 5 years ago, and
Yep.
like, we gotta dump those and pivot.
Yeah.
So so I mean, currently I've been at Yellowfin, which is business intelligence software company, for 7 years, and taken on the chief customer role, and been able to expand the company into five offices globally with 175 employees, and truly a company that is committed to the customer success. Didn't start out that way. Definitely took 3 or 4 years to get the company to realize the customer value and how important having a customer success. When I started, we pretty much said, thank you for your business, we'll talk to you when you renew. And so building a customer success team, even like getting that idea that there was a need for a customer success team to understand the customer, shepherd them through onboarding. I mean, that whole process I've had to build with the teams.
It's funny, Lee. It's like that. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. Awesome story, awesome journey. But just to jump right into it, like what you just mentioned is huge, man. Like sometimes it's so hard getting these businesses off the ground, getting a company from zero or nothing to something, anything, right? Something with blood and a heartbeat. And then the other thing too is similar to I always use my building a bonfire analogy with the company, right? Like it's really easy to want to to want to feed the fire, but like there is a process involved. Typically you can't start with the biggest logs. You got to get some small sticks, get some leaves involved, get a little bit of the tinder involved to get the things caught, and then you can start adding on. And customer experience is, regardless of the company's size or what type of industry or space they're in, we're like the tenders of the fire. We're the people that like early on are fanning the flames. We're figuring out what's going to catch, what's going to start to almost like kind of like not catch or almost go out on us and start to just to smolder. And it's hard. Every business goes through a different ebb and a different flow around arriving at why CX is critical to invest in inside of your business. And then most importantly, it takes companies a totally different trajectory to figure out how it's not always just your head of sales. It's not always just your head of marketing, your head of ops, your head of, it is a different thing that needs to be able to bounce across all of those spaces and all of those people, process, product, to be able to help figure out what the hell is going to be the big opportunities for your company or for your product or for your service.
Yeah, no, I think, excuse me. The thing that I've realized just in the last 7 years, just, I've done this now a couple of times with teams, and it is really the hardest thing for anyone who has to carry the customer flag. Is to really be able to understand what type of company you are working at. Are you a sales company? Are you a product company? Are you a service company? And then Jeannie Bliss does a good job talking about this, is like figuring out that type of because you have to go at things differently based on what the end result is for your customers. And I think a lot of times, I've had this struggle too, is you get put into a silo. Oh, that's that team's responsibility for the success of the customer. That's their thing. We don't, I'm in QA, or I'm in dev, or I'm in finance. And so it doesn't really matter. So it takes a really long time to get the horizontal understanding of everyone's tied to the success of the customer, and trying to get that mindset. So, you need someone who's loud and proud about, the customer experience to really be able to get people to the table and take ownership. And that's been the hardest thing. I mean, that's honestly, it's taken me, 5 years. And luckily, you got to have that, the CEO, Glenn, he is so customer focused, and he's it's so important to have that senior leadership support, because otherwise you're just black opsing everything and trying to just do what is right. And trying to support your teams. But if you can't align I mean, especially us for a software company, if you can't align your product team understanding and gathering feedback from customers to validate the direction you're taking your company, or the quality of your product, again, everything about the customer experience these days is about delivering on the brand promise, and that starts from marketing, sales. The sales team not understanding that bad business or over promising to a customer what you can deliver just sets your post-sales teams up for total failure and bad word of mouth.
And on top of your own goals, right? It's going to be really hard to hit some of your upsell and your cross-sell goals when you're not setting proper expectations up front, right? Like, who's going to sign up for another year or for another contract when you haven't been able to deliver on the first one? So, Lee, before we jump into the first CX pillar of team, I want you to share with us about how the Yellowfin team is built. But you just said something that I can't ignore, my friend. You talked about like knowing what customer flag you're waving, right? As a leader, any customer focused business leader. And it's funny because I know a lot of the work that we do at CXC with some of our clients, they'll say to us inside of some of our working sessions, they'll say, well, why are we talking about how is culture and mission and values? How's that a part of this? You're the CX guy. I just want to know how to get my phone call scores, better. And I want my ticket game to be improved. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, hold on. It is all
so much
together.
more than that. Yeah,
it is all baked together. So I love that you call that out. Lee, why don't you jump into the first CX pillar of team? Give us the lay of the land for how the Yellowfin team is laid out today, my friend.
Yeah, I think for us, the way that our team is organized here is we have actually, in just the last, again, it's taken kind of years to get to where we are. I mean, just 3 years ago for our organization, everything rolled under sales.
Okay.
So all of our CS teams, all of that was under sales. And again, one of the things you have to step back and really look at what's the end goal of your customer experience, and especially if you're having teams that are, a CS team that is responsible for business relationships and being the trusted advisor and trying to develop that long-term, business renewal process. If that's what you're trying to build, then having your I guess trusted advisor team that's trying to do that under sales, they're always going to have sales breath. They're always going to. It's hard to trust somebody if hey, we want to help you, but I also need to close some quarter numbers. Can we get some more licenses? Nobody likes that.
Yeah, nobody likes that.
So just recently, just in the last 2 years, we've split our teams into two camps, the acquisition and the retention camps. So I oversee everything related to the post-sales team. So that really allows our teams to focus on the acquisition and qualification and landing that new deal, which we all love. But then my teams are all responsible for ensuring that we do onboarding correctly, that we understand the success plan and what that looks like, and defining how we're going to engage and promote their adoption and growth and return on investment. And then we have our client services teams, so who focus on just the troubleshooting, getting break fix, supporting any issues that come up, to stabilizing the deployment of our software with our trusted customers. So kind of our CS, our client services teams are really how we kind of split our camp. And then I too also oversee the sales engineers.
Okay.
So we decided to break this kind of a typical model, and I think this is starting to happen.
I was going to say, what type of strings did you have to pull to make that happen? It's interesting, because I first started here at Yellowfin, and we kind of had a similar thing, and I used to oversee QA, and it was a kind of like we're trying to break we've always done this way, kind of process. And so we found that the product quality was struggling because the developers were trying to get stuff done to their timelines, and QA was trying to do quality. And so Dev was just saying, well, just close that, we'll fix it later. And so pulling QA out, giving them a voice, similar fashion to why we currently have the sales engineers reporting under me, is that we're a huge fan of Chris White's 6 habits of highly effective sales engineers and teams. And the process is really trying to get the sales engineers have a voice. Like, we need that technical, the technical qualification side of it, rather than sales teams want to get stuff closed. And we really need to have that voice to say, that's great, but we can't do that. We can't deliver that. That's going to be a terrible experience for our customer. We need to back away and go after the next
the next opportunity.
I love that, Lee. I don't want to put you on the spot, but for some of our listeners, do you happen to recall what the six habits were by any chance?
Where's
Because
my book?
I'm only curious because, or even at a high level, just to give our listeners a sense for sort of what some of those main focus areas look like, or even better, how the Yellowfin team has tried to point the team to think about utilizing some of those pillars.
Yeah, and honestly, you did just put me on the spot, and I'm like blanking on the 6 habits.
It's okay.
But I think the reason that, and actually we just finished another round with Chris last week. Just we've had new hires, and it's been the foundation of how we look at the partnership, how we go at doing demos differently. Chris's book is great because it's super streamlined to basic concepts, and it's really focused on partnership preparation. Going into it with, and I'm totally going to space the 6. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But definitely could follow up afterwards. But it really is about the preparation, the partnership. Sales is a team sport, and I think
it is totally.
Just like CX is a team sport, just like the success of the company is a team sport. So getting that partnership, understanding that, look, sales, you guys, what you sell impacts our renewal numbers and how we can deliver. And so, that's a big part of his focus, is just understanding what the outcomes are, clearly defining what the customer's needs are, because the customers come with you with like, we want this.
Yep.
But what do they actually need? And so it's really, anyway. Yeah,
no,
I apologize.
I called it out. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I did. So real quick, I happen to find it. It's habit number 1 is partnering. Habit number 2 is probe. Habit number 3 is prepare. Habit number 4 is practice. Habit number 5 is perform, part 1. And then 6 is perform, or 6 is perfect or perfect it, right?
Perfect.
So those are incredible directional guides around.
Thank you for pulling those out.
No, I had to because as soon as you called it out, I think it's like one of those things where, and Lee, you and I were talking about this the other day, man, especially in the startup and the scale up game, where it's so easy for these growing businesses or for these budding businesses to want to remain laser focused on the thing that starts to work early on, that gets their bonfire caught. But the reality is there's a number of different methodologies out there, like Chris White's, where if you break these things down into a series of simple pillars or buckets or phases or thoughts, enter whatever word or term you want to enter, it helps to simplify a rather complex thing. And I think it's just important for listeners to always try to find different ways of helping you simplify this stuff, because it can get complex and it can be daunting.
Yeah, a lesson that I have learned, and I'm actually just in this process of kind of my little aha moment. I love frameworks. I've in the last 3 organizations I've been in, the KCS model, the knowledge centered services model, has been something I'm super passionate about, because if you can manage your knowledge internally and get your teams to share globally, then the customer also has that experience to get quick resolution and case deflection and all that.
100%.
So for me, what I'm realizing is, at the end of the day, we're people helping people. So the layers of complexity that organizations have these days, like you've got your Salesforce and Marketo and all this data and there's way too much data, and we've got so many steps and so many checkboxes to, we've got success plans and we've got QBRs and we've got all these layers of requirements that we're trying to check the box to say we are doing these things so our customers should be successful. The reality is I've put so much kind of layers on that the teams are actually not able to spend more quality time with their customers. And I was talking to, I'm a big fan of success hackers, just getting our teams aligned around a process. And I was talking to Andrew over there, and I'm like, Andrew, just give me some benchmarks on how much time should our customer facing, like our CSMs, be spending with customers? And it's like, 30 to 40% of their job time should be focused on engaging with customers in a proactive, value add way. Not just, hey, I'm calling up to see if you're okay, but actually driving engagement, of what they want. And that's been the kind of the key realization, is that we're in the process of kind of pivoting our company strategy and dealing with a specific type of persona, and that persona changes everything that we've done for the last 7 years. The new customers that we're working with, they don't really care about success plans. They don't care about QBRs. They care about the product promise.
Does it
they
work?
Care about, they care about self-help, because they're more technical users. They want to be able to search, find, deploy. And if they call, they want a technical person, not to be treated like a level 1, person calling in just to start the troubleshooting process, as, do you know how to turn on your computer, kind of.
100%. Yep.
So,
no, I think that's an excellent point. Lee, I'd love to jump into the second CX pillar of tools. So
okay.
Awesome job laying out the lay of the land for how the team is built. You've got offices all over the place. So you guys were already probably pretty comfortable working in a remote fashion even before COVID and these last wonderful 12 or 13 or 14 months. But I got to imagine tools was a big part of why Yellowfin was able to have some of the success that it's had as it's continued to grow into the future. Can you spend a couple minutes talking about your customers team, your customer team, and some of the tools that you guys use to drive day-to-day customer interactions and to keep the train on the tracks, as far as all the different things that are getting thrown at you guys on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it was kind of funny because when I started 7 years ago, like, we were doing support, like the support team was doing support just out of Outlook and kind of sharing tasks. Like, we didn't have a ticketing system.
That's how everybody starts. So
oh, totally.
Everyone starts that way. Yeah.
And we're a business intelligence software company who then decided it would be really a good idea to build a CRM. So, like, I think a lot of companies have tried to do that. So we were running on homegrown CRM, doing basically ticketing system out of Outlook. There, when I started, it was one office in Melbourne. So the scalability of kind of rolling out globally, I mean, I think, good lesson to learn is it's great to have a culture of, we want everybody to have the tools and systems and things that they need for their departments. So unfortunately, we went down the track of a lot of teams went out and just kind of did their own thing.
Sure.
So at one point, we had all the cool tools that, developers thought were really cool. They were doing their own thing. And then support was trying to build out an infrastructure to, scale globally. And so we had, after year 3, we had all these systems that nobody was really using. We had to finally just say, this is the direction we're going. And so working with the COO, we just are like, we're Office 365 shop. We're doing Teams. We've got RingCentral globally. And we just had to remove all the noise and say, this is how we're going to communicate as a team.
Yep.
And so once we did that, that really helped us roll out offices and teams. And actually, because we are spread out so globally, it did make it a little easier to get everybody, homebound once COVID hit.
Yep.
So that was nice. But I think for us, the next biggest move, and what we're still in the process of doing, is we're all in on Salesforce. We just decided it was the best tool for us to go case management all the way through to finance. So that's been our kind of central hub. And the only reason we're trying to do that is to make it easier for us to ensure that everyone in the organization has a 360-degree view of the customer.
Love it.
And our next big thing is, building out health scores and systems to be proactive.
Yep.
That's kind of what we're working on now, is just, again, peeling back the layers. And like I said, we're pivoting. The customer that we're dealing with is more technical.
Yep. And
so we're having to look back and go, because one of the best things, of tools I've received here from Success Hacker, Andrew over there, they've got a capacity planning tool that you can use, and it's basically just like some Excel spreadsheets, but it works really well just to look at what's your team doing today, your CS teams, what do you want them to do, and then it helps you just kind of see, it was very eye-opening to see that our CSMs were spending about 25% of their day on internal meetings and internal emails and just a lot of noise. And so we're really just trying to peel that away. So again, they can spend that 20% of their day dealing with customers, understanding the customer's needs.
Well, Lee, think about it. Some of the stuff that you guys are pinpointing that you guys are using, you're not only, it's a couple things, you're leveraging your team, leveraging your tools. We're about to get into the third pillar process, but when you do the math, guys, on some of these things that Lee's talking about, if you're a very small business, let's say that you only have 10 people on the team, all the folks that are talking to your customers, if 20% of their time is going into an activity or a focus area that theoretically isn't about, it doesn't have anything to do with either giving your customer value, fixing a problem for your customer, or better, even better yet, proactively almost like figuring out a customer's problem before they even realized that it was a problem and then already having an answer or a solution or path forward. That is a massive, massive opportunity for your business. What if you're a business that has 100 customer or CX agents? And then you see the same thing that Lee's talking about, where you can start to find areas where 10% here or 20% there. That savings is astronomical. The ROI on that type of stuff is, no executive in the world is going to argue with Lee saying, hey, I might have just figured out a place where we can get 10% of our CSM's time back.
Oh, I mean, I was shocked. 5% reduction in internal meetings was, I mean, it almost was, if I got this right, about half an FTE of time.
Wow.
A year. So it was, and that's why. So, and again, going back to, it's great to have all the process for, and well, I think just, kind of the standard of always falling back and reminding yourself, is this process and things that I'm doing and the structure that we have and the requirements we're making, is that for us?
Yep.
Or is it for the customer?
Yep.
Like, what's the customer experience to make them go through your processes?
Yeah.
And is it a good experience or a bad experience?
Totally.
And honestly, I think one of the biggest changes just in the last 12 months that I've really kind of hit me as I was kind of looking at some Gartner and Forrester changes on what actually drives brand loyalty.
Yep.
And I ended up picking up the Effortless Experience book from like 2002, and I had read it just, and honestly, rereading that, I would highly recommend, just to kind of refresh a lot of I did memories around the ease of use for customers and what it is that they actually want. And honestly, just the research they did on, if your customers actually having to call you to do stuff, you've already tarnished their brand loyalty.
Yeah.
Like you've got to help them solve the problems so they don't have to call you.
Yeah, 100%.
So for me, that's been a huge, like the last 6 months, looking at where do we peel the layers away? How do we get them to be successful so they don't have to call us? So they don't have to, rely on us to, software company where it's, it's hard to release error-free stuff. So, but how do you fix that? How do you proactively get them to a place where they're like, this solves my problem, and what those problems are? Right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you made a comment a little bit just a couple minutes ago around some of the best companies in the world. Number one, you made a comment about like, where can people just find the answers themselves? The world has changed so quickly, guys, that there is a huge chunk of every one of your customer portfolios that doesn't even want to talk to your CX and actually, or your CS team or your support team or whomever your customer facing team is. And Lee, what you just mentioned around this idea of, and this fits perfect inside of this third pillar process, but the best CX minded companies in the world that are building their answers or building their knowledge base or building their Confluence or building their LMS systems to essentially encompass all the answers that your customer team needs. And by the way, I keep saying customer because this can be sales, this can be ops, this can be CX and CS, this can be product. I mean, you're having more and more companies, some of the best companies in the world. You've got product and you've got product designers, product managers, engineers, UX designers, UI designers. They're finally starting to talk to customers too. And they're starting to spend a lot of time understanding what makes them tick. What do they like? What do they not like? But Lee, the point that you made about the companies that take the time to document that knowledge, build out living playbooks, build out Confluence or knowledge bases inside of their LMS or inside of their CRM or wherever the hell you want to put this stuff. But then build it or write it or build that content in a way where it can be flipped around and your customers can get the same gain from it. You've just in effect operationally smoothed X% of the customers that you're going to use later on down the line that can just go read those answers themselves and get their quick answer for you.
And that's where, I think, looking at the KCS model, it just has always worked for me. I mean, it's I've seen case reduction of 65% once you get up and running, and that's just an amazing opportunity. One, your customers want, and you hit this right on the head, is like I think you just got to step back and go, how do I solve my problems? Honestly, I don't want to call the time. I don't want to talk to people on the phone anymore. I want to search. And I do actually really like chat. And again, but how easy is it that you are making it for your customer to solve their problems? And that's really, I think, at the core of what my focus is right now is stripping away, making it easier, and really stepping back and just like, what do your customers want? And you said this perfectly, like, but your customers want different things, right? So I think that's where the power of the CS team is really important, is because you need someone to have that trusted relationship to ask those questions, to document that and share it across the organization. Like, just because you have and this is what I'm learning, is just because you have, a process internally, like, okay, everyone gets onboarded, everyone gets a success plan, we're going to do health checks, this and this. But did you ask your customer, do they want that?
Yeah. What's their preferences?
Totally. Because then, I mean, you're layering on a layer of complexity and cost and process to a customer that be like, I only want these 2 or 3 things out of your 7 that you're offering me.
100%.
Awesome. It's good to know that. We're going to kill those 3 things.
Absolutely. It's amazing how many companies, I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, that you'll do these communication preference exercises. For example, let's keep the math simple. Say you got 100 customers in that given account's customer portfolio, and you'll say, it's imperative to us that we reach 90% of our customers by phone every single week. We have to do it. It's the only way that we can keep a pulse. And it's amazing how often when you take a step back and you ask the CXer, hey, are we sure that those 100 customers prefer to be contacted primarily by telephone, or are they email people, or are they text message people, or are they in-person people? And then enter any of the mediums that we can communicate or work with the customer or work with an account on. And it's amazing how many companies don't stop to take the time to realize, do the first count. Just understand who your phone people are, understand who your email people are, understand who your text message people are. And then I love, Lee, that we keep going back to this. Know who your FAQ customers are. Sorry, your self-help customers are, who are just going to go to your FAQs. They're going to get 95% of their answers there anyway, which are dream clients, right? Because they basically, they come in, they already know how to use the tool, know how to use the product, know how to use the brand or the business. And those typically become the guys and the gals that become big promoters for your business.
Oh, 100% agree. And I think, that shift, and excuse me, what we're about to launch, we have a community now, but we're actually about to launch a new community focused on actually getting more of the company to engage with customers and people, I guess prospects and people that aren't customers of our company, to share. And again, going back to the end of the day, we're people helping people. So what do we actually, and I think just simply asking, again, it's, how do you want to engage with, how can we support your success? First, we want to understand it. What are your drivers? What's growth look like? What's success, look like for you? And then how do you want us to help you do that? And then we will commit to that. And if it's only, I just want you to send me an invoice at the end of the year. Great. Now I know, right? I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time and energy trying to pull you into something you don't want to do.
Big time.
And like I said, I mean, for our shift, like we now have super technical people that we're working with, and they don't have time for that. Like they don't want that. The business side, they want to be told that they're getting their ROI and the value and all that. The technical teams, they just want stuff to work, and if it's not working, fix it quick, because that's their livelihood is stability. So.
Love it, Lee. As we get ready to wrap up today's episode, I want to make sure that we spend a couple of minutes hitting on that fourth and final CX pillar. And obviously, this is perfect for Yellowfin, because a big part of what you guys are helping folks do is understand where to find this information, where to see this, how to visualize this data, how to see this information and make it usable. Can you spend a couple minutes kind of talking about some of the ways that Yellowfin, you and your team at Yellowfin today, go about collecting and using your customer and your employee feedback?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's 2 opportunities that I always, and look, I definitely know I need to get better at this, and I've just had a great, Amy just joined our company. She's been with us about 6 months, and this is her passion background. She was a consultant for quite a few years on voice of the customer programs.
Awesome.
And so we've had a voice of the customer program for about 4 years, and we we mapped out our whole customer journey, and we've got moments of truth, and we got surveys going out, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
The problem we have is that was a great victory for me to say, I've got a voice of the customer program. Problem is that the rest of the company hadn't embraced that the feedback has to be held accountable. Like,
correct.
If we ask a question, it should drive an action.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
so that's the piece that we're about to kind of relaunch. And I've got now buy-in because of just having feedback and I'll admit, I tend to use feedback sometimes if I motivate or embarrass some of my teams. I apologize.
Hey, it's a powerful position, man. The chief customer officer is a powerful position.
Feedback, yeah, data can be a great thing if used. Yeah. Anyway, but I think we finally gotten to a place where, the feedback programs now have owners, and honestly, we've hired some amazing senior leadership and marketing and sales and our product team, and they get it. They come from other organizations who've had a robust system, so they are all ready to own it. And so for us, I mean, that's that piece. But the other piece that I think is sometimes you get so focused on the customer that you forget about is the wealth of knowledge of your frontline teams who deal with customers every single day.
100%.
Like, we've been doing employee surveys focused on how do we make it easier for you to work with our customers? How do we make it so you understand what the mission vision? I mean, all of those things are important. And I think, just having that piece to start, I would say is the best place to start. Start with your own team and understand, because they know exactly the pain points that are happening today, and then build out, the voice of the customer. So, it's funny because sometimes you get stuck into doing things because it's best practice.
Yeah.
The journey, I mean, 4 years ago, like, if you didn't journey map and have a dedicated room with, like, stickies on the wall with all the, then you weren't doing your job well.
If you were wondering what you were up to.
Exactly. So, but I think, again, it is super important to understand the customer, the journeys, and how all the teams, and that's how you connect your teams. It really is. And, the data, I guess for our company, I mean, we're passionate about data, and we know data is complex. Like, even us as a business intelligence software company, data is complex, and it's hard to take that feedback and really look at how you drive action. And really that starts with creating a culture that cares about the data and the outcome, and sharing that and being transparent. Like, just because we've gotten feedback that there's quality issues in this one area of the product, that doesn't mean that team is terrible. It means we as a company and organization have an issue to address. And how we address that, the transparency of that, how we communicate back to our customers on that, acknowledge it, take ownership. And again, if you're going to do the voice of the customer, ask the questions that drive action and have accountability. Because without that, then you're wasting your customers' time, and you have data you're not going to use. You'd rather have one good question you ask that you have an owner to,
big time,
than 75 questions that no one ever looks at. Right?
100%. And I think, Lee, like, when your customer facing team or your agents are being asked to collect upon information that they already know is never going to happen,
going to change anything.
Who wants to be the guy or the gal that has to have that conversation with the customer, ask those questions that are literally going to go nowhere? And then, especially for the best CSMs, the best customer focused agents out there and reps out there that actually build relationships with their customers, usually those relationships are already strong enough where a customer will say, well, wait a minute, Adrian, wait a minute, Lee, why are you even asking me that? I've already told you, I've told you in the last 3, quarterly check-ins with you that I want XYZ with your product. You keep telling me it's not going to be built. Why are you asking me this again if I've already told you 3 times? And they start to feel that. That's one. And then the second thing is this, though. You already hit on this so well, man, but like, it's almost like the companies that focus on VOC, right? Your voice of customer. That's your VOE, your voice of your employees. And then you build OKRs, you build quarterly goals, you build even just dashboards, and you build some of the new ways that you visualize information and data that's coming into your business every single day. Those are usually the companies that are killing it, right? They're seeing their sales going up into the right. They're showing up on all of these best places to work lists because people love showing up there every single day to work with those folks. And the last thing is this: employees, they get to work with happy customers. Usually, you're pretty happy, right? It's nothing better when you can work with a customer that loves hearing from your voice, hearing from your business, hearing from your brand. And it's a great feeling when you're a part of a business and a part of a brand that's delivering that type of an experience. So awesome stuff here, Lee. Lee, before we wrap up today's show, man, I want to make sure I give you a chance. Number one, where can people find out more about you, sir, and Yellowfin? And then number two, any other big highlights or shout outs that you want the CX Nation to know about you and your team, sir?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for the time. It's been really fun just sharing. And I think, anybody can find me on LinkedIn, Lee Roquet on LinkedIn. Glad to connect with anybody, glad to share. It's just fun to talk and to get validated and to share the struggles, because customer success isn't easy. And I think the demands on all of us is just increasing. I think COVID's been tough. I think, people are overworked, but the expectations of customers these days, it's tough. I mean, especially if you're in any kind of subscription-based business where you have to win the loyalty over and over all the time, and everybody has a choice to leave, it makes it tough and it wears your teams down. And so, excuse me, I think, validating that with your teams and talking about it and just, celebrate and elevate the wins, because they matter. And the little things, especially like you said, if you're dealing with, teams that are dealing with customers who are unhappy all the time, that's a hard job.
Super hard job.
And I think promoting that within the organization is so important. Understanding the value of the customer, but understanding the teams that actually support and ensure customers renew and do and grow is important. So anyway, thank you for the time just to share. But I think for me, I mean, anybody can, if you need any help with your data, that's our specialty. So, yellowfinbi.com. But I think one of the things that I'll just want to say about kind of what we focus on is really creating the data culture. And again, there's the customer culture, there's a company culture, but your data culture is so important to how you actually work. Because if you can't look at the metrics, if you can't, like you said, and you just said it perfectly just a second ago, is have a couple of those metrics that people can unite around. And it could just be one that we're going to focus on in the next 90 days, and we're going to do it as a team. And everybody in the organization needs the transparency to see that. But also, data is complex, and honestly, there's a lot of the back-end systems that makes teams and process successful, but it's not easy. And so making that easy, making the contextual, making your data beautiful, and making the story behind your data something that people can read. Because a lot of times you get those, spreadsheets and all this data coming at you, and you don't want to be the one saying, I don't understand what this means. Why is this valuable for me? So being able to have a way to actually put it into words that allow you to drive action. And so anyway, that's our focus. That's how we feel data should be used to drive success. So
love it. Well, look, Lee Roquet, pleasure having you on the CX Chronicles podcast. Absolute pleasure, folks. Be sure to check out Yellowfin BI. Awesome company. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again really soon, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adrian, for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lee.
Okay, bye-bye.